Event registration is the beefier of the two. It allows you to collect information from people who are registering to attend your event, collect money, which I know was something that wasn't a priority for your organization. So I'll probably skim over a lot of that so that we can focus more heavily on the attendance tracking. Attendance tracking is not typically included too thoroughly in one of these trainings, but I will cover it for you guys since that was something you're interested in. All right, so let's go ahead and get started, dive right in. All right, event registration is accessed from the admin menu if you're a full administrator, from the events drop-down menu here, event registration. If anybody on this call is not a full administrator, but is going to be granted limited access to event registration only as an admin, you'll actually be accessing it from a different area. Anyone who's only a partial admin will have a tab down here in their My Membership info section for admin permissions, and you'll actually access the back end of event registration from there. So let's go on in here and see what we got. All right, this is the administrative area of event registration. I did create a dummy event for today's training so that we can kind of go through an event that's already been set up without having to waste time inputting information, etc. So I'll be using this Impact 100 training event here for our training today. This is hidden from the rest of your members, so they can't see it right now, so don't worry about that. This landing page right here will display all upcoming registrations in the system. So any events that have already passed are automatically removed from this page. If you do, however, need to go back and view reports or attendee lists about them, you can always do that by changing this drop-down menu here to see past events. But otherwise, all current and upcoming events will be listed right here on this page. Down here at the bottom of this page is a very, very, very important box. Cannot stress how important this is. This box contains the URLs that you will send out to promote your event. At the top here, we have two general URLs that will go to a list of all current publicly listed events. So let's go to one of those just to see what it looks like. It's completely blank right now because the only event in your system is this one, and I have it hidden from the general event list. Down below that, there will be links for every single current event in the system. So here is the one for our training event today. And this is the URL that you will copy and paste into emails that you send out to promote your event. You should always use the URL that's provided in this box. Never, ever, ever go up to your bar here and copy from the address bar. The registration URLs are different from the ones that are, up in the bar for admins. So you want to make sure you use the correct URL when sending out those invitations. So always come down here, copy this URL, and use that to promote your event. So let's see what that URL takes us to. This is a URL for this particular event. This will only take people to the landing page for this Impact 100 training event. This is the landing page right here. You'll see we have the name of our event at the top, the dates and times, an itinerary button. This is a brand new feature as of this week. Here is our event description and the register button. So this is the landing page that everybody will go to register for this event. So let's go in and actually set that page up and create our event. I'm going to walk you through the entire creation process, and then we'll do a test registration so you can actually see what attendees will see when they register for your event. So to set up a new event or edit an existing event, to set up a new, you would click on the Add New Event Registration button. To edit an existing event, we can either click on the name of the event or click on Change in the Functions menu. Both of these take you to the same place, the very first page of the creation process. The event setup process is a few pages long, as you can see here on the right. This first page contains a lot of options, and they're sorted into categories using these expanded menus here. There's a lot of information on this page, but don't get overwhelmed. A lot of it is entirely optional or custom options that are probably not relevant for every event that you're having. If you're just looking to get an event created and in the system, just to get it going, all you really need to worry about on this page is the event name and the event begin date. That's all that really needs to be filled in order to save and continue and move forward in the process. Excuse me. So I'm going to go through each of these tabs and explain what all of the options do. Feel free to interrupt me at any point if you have a question, so that way I can answer it right there while we're on the same page. All right, the first tab here, General Options, allows you to specify the event name and design that event description that is displayed here on the landing page. This description is also included on the final summary page after registration completes, as well as included in confirmation emails. So it's a good place to include lots of information about your event. You can include images, links, all kinds of stuff, tables, etc. Below that, we have our event begin and end date fields. You don't have to have an end date. If your event is only 1 day long, you can leave the event end date field completely blank. The registration cutoff date is also entirely optional. By default, registration will cut off at the end of your event. However, if you'd like to cut off registration early, you can specify an earlier date here in this field. Below that, we have our event start and end times. These are very important to fill out, especially if you choose to use the add to calendar options in your confirmation emails. In order for those to be accurate, you do need to have a start and end time entered here. Below that, we have our registration availability dropdown. This determines how visible your event is to people. The top option is the default. When you create a new event, available means your event is listed on the general list of events, and it's available to everyone for registration. The second option, disabled, is basically the complete opposite. It's not available to anybody. Nobody can see it. Nobody can register for it. Only admins will have any access to this event whatsoever. The next option is the status that the event was currently hidden. Hidden events are available for registration, but they're not listed on the overall list of events. They can only be accessed if you go to the unique URL for this particular event. This is useful if you have an event that you don't necessarily want to publicize, and you only want it to go out to a certain group of people. You can use the hidden status for that. The last 4 options work exactly the same way. They just have different messages associated with them. For all 4 of these, the event is shown both on the general list and on the landing page, and all the information is listed. However, the registration button is disabled. And instead of seeing a registration button, people will see a notice such as registration coming soon, temporarily suspended, registration full, or registration closed. That way you can continue to promote your event, but people will not be able to register and they'll see why. So we are going to switch this to available for the time being so that we can go ahead and do our test registration later. That's the first tab. The second tab is location information. This is pretty self-explanatory. Any information entered here in this section will be displayed on that event landing page down at the bottom under the description. All right, this next tab has quite a few options, so I'm going to go through most of these with you. The first 3 fields here are the notification email addresses. You can have up to 1 email address in each field. Anyone who is listed in these will receive a notification every time someone registers for the event. This next checkbox here I did enable for you guys. This triggers the RSVP options in event invitations, and we will actually go over that after the event is set up. But you do need to turn it on for each event using this checkbox here. All right, the next option here, current member validation method. So you can choose to have member or non-member packages, and to validate whether or not someone is a member, we have 2 methods of doing that. They can either put in their email address or they can put in their username and password. Right now I have you guys set up for email. If you'd like to use login instead, you can select that on a per event basis here, or we can change the setting permanently in configuration. Or alternatively, if you do not want to differentiate between members and non-members at all, we can disable that entirely. All right, pin to top is pretty self-explanatory. What it does is it takes your event and it pins it to the top of the list, both in the admin area and in the general event list. Otherwise, they're going to be sorted by date. So if you have an event that's particularly important, such as an annual conference, and you want to promote that and keep it at the top of the list, you can check the pin to top option for that particular event. All right, auto copy. This is something that's not very commonly used in event registration. It allows you to replicate your event automatically for a certain day every month. This is something where it's not really commonly used in event reg, but we do have an identical option in the calendar. Typically, if you have an event that's every month, you probably don't need people to actually register for it. You just need people to be aware of when it is. So you would put it on the calendar rather than in event registration and use the auto copy option that's available there. Force descriptions to show. This one's a little tricky to explain. You'll actually see it in effect when we do our test registration. During the registration process, descriptions for various fields and packages are hidden behind these little clickable info bubbles, just like they are here in the admin area. If you would like those descriptions to instead be displayed directly below the field, so that way there's no having to click on anything to see more information, then you can check this Force Descriptions to Show box. I typically recommend doing this. It does make the registration form longer because all of the information is displayed right there on the page, but some people are not tech savvy and may not realize that they can click on these little info bubbles to get more information. So I typically recommend going ahead and enabling that option. All right, attendee limit for event. This is pretty straightforward. And actually, I meant to put that 100 up here. The attendee limit for an event cuts off registration after that number of people have registered, essentially. So in this case, 100, after 100 people have registered, the event will no longer be open for registration and no more people can register. This limit is shown on this page right here as there's so many spots remaining out of 100. If this is enabled, if you want to continue using the attendee limit but not show that information on the landing page, you can just check this box right here to hide that verbiage so it doesn't show up. Below that, we have the attendees per transaction limit. The way our registration system works is you can have multiple people registering together on one transaction. If you'd like to limit that, you can specify a number here in this box. I typically use 2 as an example. That way, only that many people can be included on a registration. It will cut them off after that amount. Member-only registration is exactly what it sounds like. If you check this box, no guests will be able to register for your event. Enable event admins allows you to give regular members of your organization limited access to this particular event. They can view things like the attendee lists and some reports and send out messages, but they won't be able to modify the event settings or delete the event. All right, these 2 options right here are brand new, along with some of the ones below here. We have a brand new attendee portal option. This allows people that have registered for your event to go to a link and put in a code, and they'll have access to view their itinerary, the overall public itinerary, etc. So I have enabled this for you guys for this particular event so that we can test it out. It does have some additional options associated with it, such as the verbiage that appears at the top of the portal, the ability to display each person's individual itinerary, the general itinerary, etc. All right. You do have an option enabled in your configuration already. I didn't change it, but it was enabled to automatically add people to your prospects list if they're not considered a member when they register. So you can use this option here to choose a different member type for those people to be automatically added to. So if you don't want them added to the prospects list, you'd like them included in list only, for example, instead, anyone who's not a member who registers for this event will be placed into that record type. All right, you also have an option to award certifications when people are marked as attended at this event. This is where you would check that certification that can be awarded. Okay, so that is advanced event options. This is the invoice and payment options section. I'm not going to go over this since you're not going to be using payment options, but I did check one option that you may check or uncheck in the future, just depending, and that is suppress auto invoice sending. Since you're not going to be using billing, this would turn off the invoice that's typically included in confirmation messages. So if you have it is unchecked by default. So if you have an event and you do not want people to receive PDF copies of their invoice when they finish their registration, just come in here and check this box in the payment section. All right, the next tab is also pretty self-explanatory. It just determines which fields you want to either require or suppress entirely during the event registration process. So for example, if you want to force people to fill out their position, you can check that box there. Or if you don't need to know what country they're from, for example, everybody might be coming from the US, you don't need that information, you can check that box to remove that entirely from the registration process. All right, the next tab is logo options. You do have the ability to include a logo. This is different than the image that I have here. This image is included in the description field. The logo is displayed in certain calendar views and event registration views. It can also be included on badges as well. Excuse me. All right, this last section here, verbiage and alternate labels. The great thing about our event registration process is that almost every page of the process can be customized. You can add custom text to every single page to give additional instructions or additional information about the event. So what I've done for each of these fields, since there are quite a few of them, is I've put the name of the verbiage field in the curly brackets in the field itself so that when we do our test registration, you can actually see what those fields correspond to. Some of them are not very easily named here. The first one is a great example. It just says verbiage. So where does this field turn up? This is actually below the register button here on the main event landing page. So if you had additional information about this event and you want it to appear below the registration button, then you would fill it out in this first verbiage field, and that's where it would show up. So there's quite a few of these for every step of the process. There's this little event blurb. That's one of them. This shows up in bold right here directly above the button, etc. At the bottom of this section, you have the ability to rename some of the commonly used terms in the registration process. These will take effect on the public side of the registration. Admins will still see the default system terms. So for this one, I use the example of changing the default text for the button, actually. The button by default says register for this event, and you'll see I have changed it to say register here instead. So that takes effect right here on that landing page. All right, that is the first page of event registration setup. Like I said, there's a lot there, but don't get overwhelmed. If you're just trying to start working on an event and you just want to get the basic info in there, just get the event name and date and move on. All right, moving on to the next step. This will take us to the package setup page. Packages must be selected for each person who is attending the event. So every person attending must and can only select one package. So this is the main ticket price, or ticket, not price in your case, for the event. In this case, I just set up two as an example. One is for members only. Let's take a look at that setup. We have our package name here at the top, and you can also include a package description if you wish. This will be visible to the people registering. So let's just do package description, member. Below that, you'll specify the cost of this ticket. It can be $0. That's no problem at all. Below that, you'll specify who has access to this package, whether it's everybody, which is the bottom option here. You can choose to have it available for just board members, guests, who are people that are not in your system, or members only, which are people who have authenticated as members with their email address. If you do select members only, some additional options pop up below. You can further restrict the package permissions by member type, and in your case, restrict it to people who only hold a certification or have a particular membership add-on.
Colleen, I have a question. I know we were holding questions to the end to try to get it solved, but can we take the dollars out completely as opposed to having it say $0?
Let me check. I'll have to check with our programmer on that. Yeah, I'll have to see if I'm not sure if it actually hides it entirely if you put 0 or if it says $0, but if so, I can see if a programmer can change that for you.
Thank you.
And feel free to interrupt me at any point. I don't make you wait till the end for questions. Feel free to interrupt if you have any question about what I'm currently covering. I don't mind at all. All right, below the membership package options, we have two fields, available on and cutoff date. These can be used together or just one or the other. Available on date will make your package visible as of a certain date, and cutoff will cut off the package. It will not be available after this date. So these are good for things like early or late registrations, where you maybe want to charge less or more, that kind of a thing. The restricted checkbox after that restricts a package to admins only. This typically, what I use as an example here would be as if you had a $0 package and you didn't want everybody to be able to access it. Say you had a conference, you're typically charging $100, but you have some speakers who have their attendance price comped, so you have a $0 package in the system just for them. You would mark that package as restricted, and then admins would register for them on their behalf. All right, openings available is just like the openings available for the overall event, only it's limited to this particular package. So if you have a VIP package, for example, where there's only seating for 15 people maybe, you can put a limit in here, and once 15 people register for this package, it no longer becomes available. All right, so that is package setup. It's pretty straightforward. So I have two right here right now, a member for $0 and a guest package for $10. These can be rearranged just by dragging and dropping them. And this is the order they'll be displayed at and the registration. You can also copy packages. So if you have quite a few packages to set up, and they all have mostly the same information with some minor changes, and you don't want to type all that information in over and over again, you can use the copy option here to do that. All right, let's move on to the next page. All right, these are custom fields, and this is where you're going to be set up the custom part of your registration form, including session selection. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to skip past the setup page here and go to the next page, because the next page of setup shows a preview of this form, and it's much easier to explain how they work when you can see them, and then we'll go back and set them up. So this is the preview of the registration form as it stands. We have our attendee information fields here at the top, our package selections here. You'll see we can only pick from one or the other. And below that are the custom fields. They are under this event information heading. So I'm going to go through each of these and explain what type of custom field they are and how they work. And then we'll go back and actually set them up. The first type of custom field that's available is a text caption. This is just this gray box right here. It does not actually accept any input. It is just to provide a chunk of text on the registration page to give people more information. So it has the bold title here in the top, and then the description field is listed below. The next type of custom field that's available is a short text field. This one just takes a couple sentences of input from the attendee. So I use the example here of, do you have any dietary restrictions? You'll notice here that the description for this field, which I just filled out with the name of the field in this particular case, text field, is displayed directly below the actual question itself. This is an example of those fields being displayed automatically rather than being hidden behind a clickable info bubble. So if you did have the clickable info bubbles enabled instead, you would not see these gray fields below. They would be hidden behind a clickable icon instead. This field right now also is set up to have an image associated with it. This is a feature that's available for most of the custom fields. All right, the next custom field is the multi-select field. So there is the name of that field. Please choose which morning session you will attend. So this one I have set up to work as sessions for you guys. You'll see at the top the basic information for the overall field, and the sessions are listed below. So there's session 1 and session 2. I do have these set up as radio buttons at the moment. This can also be set up as a drop-down menu where people can select from a drop-down, but it doesn't show this additional session information if you set it up that way. So I generally prefer using radio buttons for this. This allows people to choose only one option from the list. So in this case, they can choose not available or one of the session options. The next type of custom field that we offer is a basic checkbox, pretty self-explanatory. It's just a check or no check. In this case, we have, I'd like to attend the optional breakout session, and then the optional session information is included here in the description. The next custom field type that we offer is a numeric field. This field accepts a numeral from the attendee. It also has the ability to have that number multiplied by an each price that you specify. So I like to use the how many raffle tickets would you like to purchase example for this one. So that way people can type in here, I want 5 raffle tickets. What the system will do is it'll multiply the 5 by the $2 each price and add $10 to the cost of their registration automatically. The price is optional. It can be added to most of these fields as well. So you could, in theory, have a price associated with your sessions too. But the example just works best with the numeric field. The numeric field also has an openings limitation available to it. So in this case, 500. Once 500 items have been sold from this field will disappear entirely and will be no longer available. The last field type that we offer is the open donation field. This just accepts a number, and this number will be added to the cost of registration. All right, so that's one of each. Oh, no, wait, there's one more. I almost forgot. I do have a field there it is. Okay, so we also have the ability to have fields displayed based upon which package is selected. So I had the member package selected, so this field was not showing up. When a user selects the guest package, we have our multi-line field, which is just a large text box that takes in a lot of information. So I have this particular field set to display only when the guest package is selected. And that is an option that's available for almost all of these other fields as well. All right, so that is all of the different custom field types. Let's go back now and see how those are set up. So they're set up just like the packages are. Every time you want to add a field to this custom form, you just click Add a New Field and select which of the types of fields you would like to add. There are limitations for each one, so this number will adjust as you create them. For example, you can only have 4 open donation fields or 5 open donation fields total on a particular registration. So since I've already used 1, there's 4 that are available left. So just select the type you'd like to create and save and continue to move forward in the creation process. I am going to go ahead and edit an existing one. So let's go in here and do the selection field, since that is the most complicated of all of them because it does have additional drop-down options. So when you're setting up a custom field, first you'll fill in the field name. This is what will appear in bold. Below that is the instructions. This is what will appear in the smaller text below or hidden behind that info bubble. Since this is a multi-select, you do have the option to either use radio buttons or a drop-down menu. Once again, if you're doing sessions, I recommend using the radio buttons so that all of the information is displayed right there on the page. Most custom fields have the available on date and cutoff date options as well, so you can make them visible after a certain period of time or cut off after a certain date. They can also be restricted to admins only. And this field image section is where you would specify an image to appear next to this particular field. Now, you guys are interested in attendance tracking. We have 2 ways you can track attendance. You can either track attendance for the entire event, so just marking somebody whether they were there or not, or you can track attendance on individual sessions within your event. If you want to track based on individual sessions, then you will need to enable attendance tracking for any custom fields that would count as sessions, essentially. So I have enabled attendance tracking for this multi-select field, and I've also enabled it for that checkbox that determined whether or not people were attending the optional breakout session. This checkbox here is the option to tie this particular field to a specific package. So if we wanted these breakout sessions to only appear to the people who selected the member package, for example, we could do that. And you also have the option to make a field have its entry be required. If a field is marked as entry required, people do have to make a selection or fill out the field in order to proceed and move forward in the registration process. All right, sessions are actually filled out below this. We have our additional data fields section here where we'll fill out the basic information. So there's our session times and various info. If you choose to use dynamic badges, which can print out unique badges that display the actual sessions each person selected, you can choose to include this information on those as well. And down here at the bottom is where you'll choose whether to include this session on the general itinerary or the individual's unique itinerary. So you'll typically want to check both of those boxes. The general itinerary is visible here on the event landing page from the View Event Itinerary button. This is where you'll see all of your sessions. So here is our 2 sessions that they can choose from. And then this right here is the checkbox session that is set up. All right, so for a multi-select field, once we click Save and Continue, we're actually taken to another page where we add the individual options that people can choose from. All of the other fields, once you save and continue, you're just taken back to the custom field list. But for this, we're actually going to set up our options for the selection. So these are the sessions that people can choose from. Let's go in and edit one of them. The first option has a name field, a description field, and the options to include speaker, location, an optional cost. The option to be selected by default, since this is a multi-select and people can only select one option. The normal option is to just, when they first load into the page, nothing will be selected. But if you would like to make one of the drop-down options automatically selected by default, you can check this box here, and this particular option, session 1, will be selected by default when people reach this page. You can also have a cutoff date for these and start and end times, as well as an opening restriction. So that is how you configure the sessions within a multi-select. Now, if you don't have a multiple choice and you just want people to opt in or out of individual sessions, for that you can use the checkbox. So that's where I've configured the I'd like to attend the optional breakout session. So let's go in there and edit the checkbox option. This one's pretty straightforward. We have the field name here at the top. Now this is what is displayed here on this page. So you may want to reword this differently. Other than I'd like to attend, you could give it the name of the session here and put the instructions here in this box. It has all of the same options as the other field. We do want to make sure we enable attendance tracking for this particular field if we want to track attendance at the event for specifically this breakout session. If you're just tracking attendance for the event as a whole, you don't need to worry about this though. Below that is the additional data fields where we'll fill out the actual details about this session. And the field speaker bio session here is actually what displays in this bio link if we click on that. So that's an additional info box. All right. So that is how you set up those custom fields and sessions. Any questions about those before I move on?
Is tracking attendance tracking registration, or is there a way to track the people who actually, this isn't tracking the people who actually show up at the event, it's tracking the people who register for the event, correct?
Right now, we're setting up the registration form. So people will make these selections when they register, and then we can track attendance for those fields that we have set up for that at the event. And I will be showing you how to do that after we do our registration.
Thank you.
So it's both. Okay, so after you've set up your custom fields here on this page, and you can drag and drop these just like the package setting. You can move them around, you can copy them. It's pretty awesome. So after we set those up, we click continue, and at this point your event is saved in the system. So you can leave event registration and not worry about losing any of your information. At this point, when you've reached this page, it is saved. Down here at the bottom is that preview panel that shows you what your options will look like. There's your entire registration form. You can choose to preview this as a particular member type. So if you wanted to see, for example, what a guest would see when they reach this page, you can check guest and hit load preview. And from there, you'll see all of the guest options. So for example, guests will not have access to the member package because they're not members. So that's a good way to test the checkout process as a different member type. At this point, you can either return to the event list, or if you also need to put your event on your calendar so that people see it's coming up, you can copy the event to the organization calendar. This option is only available once, and it will take you over to calendar admin and just automatically put that event onto your calendar. So boom, there it is. It automatically brought over the name, the time, and if we go in and edit the event itself, you'll see it also automatically brought over the event description. Now going forward, if you were to edit the event description in event registration, you would also need to edit it here separately. They do not automatically connect with each other after that initial copy over. All right, so now let's actually register for our event and see what that looks like. All right, so I'm an attendee. I was sent an email and I go to this URL and I'm taken to this page. We have our event itinerary I can preview here at the top, our event description, and below that I can click the register button to start the registration process. The first page takes me to the email address field. This is used to authenticate my membership or not. So I click continue. Now, if it had authenticated me as a member, it would auto-populate these fields with my information. Since I'm not in your system, they're all blank, so I just have to fill them in. So I'll just put some quick information in here. And any fields that you did mark as required in that require suppress fields setup will be marked with the asterisk here. So for instance, if I had asked that organization be required, it would have an asterisk and it would force me to fill that out before I can continue with registration. Likewise, we did choose to suppress country, so you'll notice that there is no country field on here at all. All right, so this is the main contacts information. I fill that out and I click continue. Now we're taken to the attendee information page. This is the attendee who is actually going to be attending the event. 90% of the time, the contact and the first attendee are going to be the same person because typically, if you're filling out the registration form, you're attending. But you can change the name here if you do not have contact name lock enabled. So if you're an office assistant filling out a registration for a group of people in your office, but you're not actually going yourself, you can put yourself as the contact and change this first attendee to be one of the people who's actually attending. But it will automatically fill out the contact's name first. From there, we choose our package selection. So I am not a member, so I do not have access to that. I can only choose the guest package. And from there, I fill out the custom fields. So I fill out the text field. I choose from my sessions. Now, if you'll recall, we did change this particular option and make it required. So since it is required and has a default option, there is no option to choose NA. We have to choose a particular session. I'd like to attend the optional breakout. Hi, it's coming. Let's buy 5 raffle tickets and donate $10. All right, so once I've filled out my registration form here as an attendee, I click continue. At this point, I can choose to add additional attendees to this registration transaction, or I can complete the registration as it is. Let's add an additional attendee. What this does is it takes us back to the attendee information page, only this time it's blank. So it's no longer assuming the contact is the attendee because that already occurred. So now we can add any attendee, and they will also be on this transaction. They will also be prompted to fill out the custom fields and choose from sessions. And we click continue, and we're taken back to the summary page. Now we see we have 2 attendees listed on this registration. And you'll notice that the add additional attendee button is gone. That's because we limited attendees per transaction to 2. If we had left that field blank, that button would still be there and I could keep adding attendees. I could add everybody in the office if I wanted to. But since we have it limited to 2, we can only add 2 people. And now we are forced to complete the registration. So this takes us to the checkout process. So pay by check, continue. If there is no price associated with the registration, it will just skip that page entirely. All right, so at this point, we are done registering. This is the summary screen. This is the check one specifically, so typically it shows the check instructions here. But all of the confirmation pages will include the event information, so the entire description field will be displayed here. Below that, it will list the contact and each attendee who was on that registration, along with all of the options they chose for those custom fields. And then at the bottom will be billing information. So at this point, registration is complete. Let's go back to the event list and see how that has changed. So now that people have registered for our event, you'll see over here in this gray bar, excuse me, that we have 2 attendees who have registered and 1 invoice which has not been paid. So this gray box here will continue to increment as people register for our event. Over here on the right are all of our event options that we as administrators can use. Obviously, the first option allows us to go in there and change the event. The delete field lets us delete the event entirely. You can also copy events. So if you have an event that is recurring, you can just copy it, save yourself some trouble. RSVP. Now, this is very important. We're going to skip over RSVP really quick and go to invitations first. RSVP works together with invitations. When you have RSVP enabled in the event settings, like we did at the very start, it allows you to send out these invitations and get RSVP responses from people. So we start by actually sending out an invitation using the invite link. Here we will compose our email to go out to people. Our send date, the reply to, name and email works just like broadcast email if you're familiar with that. It will auto-populate with a subject, and the body of the email will auto-populate with the event information. So there's our description field. And at the bottom will be a register link as well as an RSVP link. So, oops, I just messed it up. So this is the link that people will click to actually confirm or decline their attendance at the event, or they can just click here to register for the event right then and there. So this would be the email you send out to initiate that process. Once you initiate the RSVP process, let's go back to event registration here. Once you send out that email and you start getting responses, you as an admin can view the responses from within the RSVP link here. So earlier today, I actually manually responded as Chris with a yes. So you'll see responses for the event here in this table. And the people that have been invited by email but have not responded will be listed in the table down here. So you can see everybody who has responded and when they responded using this table. You can also come in here and edit their responses. So if they change their mind and say, oh, I changed my mind, I'm not coming to this event, you can specify that. So pretty straightforward. It's being really slow today. So that's how the RSVP system works. One other feature of the RSVP system is that you can continue sending out invitations as you get closer and closer to your event. And anyone who has already declined to attend will not receive those invitations automatically. So if I've already RSVP'd no, and you try to send me an invitation and include me in the list of people getting it, again, I will not be sent that email. So you're not going to be spamming people who have already indicated they don't want to attend your event. All right, below that we have the admins change link. This will only show up if you choose to have the event-specific admins. This allows you to go in here and pick a member from your member list. And this is taking really slow. I don't know why it's not loading at the moment, but it will take you into a list of your members and you can select a member and add them to the list. And they will have access only to these options down here. So they can send out messages to your attendees, they can send out reminders about your event to attendees, and they can configure surveys for your event to send out to people after the event is over, but they can't actually come up here and delete the event or change the event's settings, which is very helpful. All right, the other options that are available here are reports and edit. You'll notice that we have two report links actually, this one right here, as well as this all event reporting link at the top of the page. So these are different. This link up here allows you to pull reports based on a time frame, and it will include everybody and all events within that time frame, regardless of what event they registered for. The reports here in this reports link, however, are event specific. These are only for this particular event. So this is where you would go to print things like the attendee detailed list that shows everybody who attended and what they selected from those options. I don't know why it's being super slow. It did that earlier. Got some issues going on, I think. All right, the edit link here as well will allow us to go in and actually view our attendee list. And it's not loading, of course. Come on. So this is where you'll actually see the list of people who are attending the event and who will, and this is also where you can check people in with attendance. Did your organization opt for a mobile app? I don't think so.
No, we did not.
You did not opt for the mobile app? Okay. Okay, so yep, so all attendance tracking is actually done from within this attendees edit link then. So as soon as I can get in there, I will show you that. Give me just a second here. I'll log back in. Oh, there we go. Just took it a minute. Okay, so this is the attendees list. Over here on the left will be the contact for each transaction, and the entire list will be sorted by the contact last name. The second column is the actual attendees that are associated with this particular contact. So you'll see there's my name, and then there's my attendee and my additional attendee right here. Now, if you just want to track attendance for the overall event, you can do it straight from this list. You can just come right in here and check these boxes, and that marks somebody as attended for the entire event. So if you're just tracking event attendance and not individual field attendance, you can do that right from this page. If, however, you'd like to track attendance at individual fields of the event, then you'll need to use this View Edit Event Field Attendance option. From here, you can either choose to record the attendance based on the attendee or by an individual session. So if we wanted to record attendance for the optional breakout session, for example, we would click continue. And from here, we can mark this person as attended or not. So right now I am registered for this particular session, but I am not marked as attended. So I can click the plus button, and now I am marked as attended at this specific session, the optional breakout session. Likewise, you can also click this button up here. Right now it's only showing attendees who actually signed up for this particular field. So if I click show all attendees, I can now actually mark somebody who didn't register for this field as attended if I want to. So if any attendee who did not register actually does show up for the session and wants to be marked as attended for this to get credit, we can manually do that as well. You can also record attendance by attendee. So I can select a particular attendee from the list here, and it will show all of the sessions available and whether or not they are attended. And we can go ahead and mark them as attended with the plus sign. So recording attendance is pretty straightforward and can be done in quite a few different ways. You can also check people in using the attendee check-in page specifically. This will allow you to print badges for them at the same time. So it'll bring up this entire list of all of your attendees. If the list is particularly long, you can search for them by name here to just pull up a particular attendee. It'll also show whether or not they've paid for the event and whether they're checked in. So at this point, we can manually check them in and print their badge. So there is their dynamic badge. Okay. Any questions about attendance before I move on? No? Okay.
I saw record mass attendance. Is that?
Yep. So that is useful if you need to record a bunch of people all at once. So you can come in here and just check everybody, for example, or go down the list and check and uncheck. So it's just a more efficient way of doing it, basically. And once you're done, record attendance for selected attendees. Okay, any other questions? Okay, moving on in event registration here, the rest of this page, let me go through all the options you're seeing here. The payment method column is straightforward. It's just how they chose to pay for their event attendance. The invoice is generated if there is a dollar value associated with the registration. Otherwise, this field will be blank. Over here on the right, you as an admin can go in and edit registrations by clicking the edit pencil next to it. And it just takes you through the entire registration process with that information pre-filled so you can make adjustments. You can also take notes on a particular registration as an admin. Reg notes. When you take notes on a particular registration, it will appear in italic below their list of attendees. So this is good if you have notes that you need to communicate to other admins, like so-and-so canceled. You can also void a registration entirely or resend them their confirmation email. Down below this, we have the option to register on behalf of other people. This will give you that access to those restricted fields as well as all payment options as well. So if you have a special circumstance, you need to register on behalf of somebody, you can start this process here by searching for a member in the database, or if it's a person who is not already in your database, you can just click the Add Attendee button. All right, let's go back to the event list. All right, so that is event registration. I don't think there's anything else I need to cover here. Did you have any questions about the event registration process before I move on to the calendar? Nope, okay. Well, now I'm going to pop over and I'll show you how the calendar works. So the calendar, like I said, is a separate module, but it does work in tandem with event registration as we saw earlier. Calendar is located under the events dropdown here under calendar admin. Now you'll also see calendar invitations here. Don't get this confused with event invitations. These are entirely separate. Calendar invitations allow you to send a basic invitation to a calendar event where people can essentially say, yes, I'm attending. No, I'm not attending. It's basically a quick and dirty RSVP system. It does not include a registration form or sessions. So typically we recommend you either use one or the other. If you need to collect that additional information people in the form of a form, then you'll need to use event registration. But calendar invitations are an option in here and they're on their own. But we're going to actually go into calendar admin where we set up calendar events themselves. When we first come in here, we'll see our list of events. Just like event registration, it only shows future events by default, but you can choose to show past events using this drop-down menu right here. Events have the ability to be categorized. You can set up event categories in this link here at the top. It looks like you guys already have quite a few set up. These can be used to display events by category on certain calendar pages. To add a new event to the system, you would simply click Add New Event, specify the dates of your event. From there, you can fill out your event name and give it a category, or multiple categories for that matter. The event description field, yeah, go ahead.
Is this going to, if I select those categories, those are committees, is it going to go to the committee calendar instead, or is it still going to a general calendar?
It will go to the overall calendar as well as any calendars you have set up for those particular committees.
Thank you.
All right, below that we have our event description field where you can put a bunch of information about your event. You can specify the times for your event as well as the time zone. We also have alternate time as text. So if your event does not have a set time, you can just type a time in here. So about 4 p.m.-ish. Oops, I actually hit enter. Go back down. All right, you can also change the status from pending to active. If you have the option enabled to allow your members to submit events for posting on the calendar, those events will be in a pending status until admins access them and change them to active. Below that, we have just the contact information for our event as well as the location. Advanced options allows you to include more details in an extended details field, as well as link the event to the event registration system. So what this does is it'll actually add a register link to the calendar details page so that when people click on the event on a calendar, they can then proceed to event registration automatically. Below that is the auto copy option that I mentioned is much more useful than the one in event registration. So you can automatically copy this event on a monthly or weekly basis. You can also include logos for your event, as well as links about your event. So if you have a webinar, for example, and you're posting that on your calendar, but you're not making an event registration for it because you don't need to, you just need people to have the link to the webinar, then you could put that link to the webinar here in these link fields. All right, so that is how you create a calendar event. It's pretty straightforward.
So I have another question.
Sure.
When we were creating the event registration, you had the option to include it in calendars. Is that just for the recipient and their email to add it to their personal calendar?
Yes.
Or is it added? Okay.
Yep.
So when we create an event, are we creating an event from the calendar then? I'm not sure what's different between the calendar admin side and the registration side.
Yeah, so the event registration is the one where you're actually filling out all that entire registration form. You can have an event that is only listed in event registration and is not displayed on your calendar, or vice versa, or both. The calendar is essentially a way to display these events to your members. Let me see, do you have a calendar included in your menu anywhere? It's not on here, so let me. I know there's one here. So members can come in here and click on calendar of events.
On the home page.
Oh, you have one on the homepage? Okay, let me see. Let's see. You might have a feed. Okay, yep. So you have your upcoming events here and you can click view all. This is the calendar essentially. This shows events that are entered into calendar admin. These are going to be listed right here. So this is a display saying what events are coming up. But these events aren't necessarily also in event registration. They may just be on the calendar just to notify people that they exist. Events that can actually be registered for can be listed here. So there's our training event. Or if the event is linked to a calendar entry, so you'll see how our training event is both here and here. This is the calendar entry for our event. If we click on this, it takes us to the calendar info. So this is the actual calendar entry for the event. you'll notice it looks different than our event landing page. However, since it is linked to event registration, to the corresponding entry in event registration, it does have this register button, and this register button will transfer us over into event registration. But if they were not linked together, this would just be a page giving more information about our event. There would be no registering for anything. It would just be an info page, essentially. So that's the difference between the two. Event registration allows you to offer the registration process, whereas the calendar allows for the display of events in a calendar format or in the feed on your homepage, essentially. So once again, you can have one in one, an event in one and not the other. That's totally fine. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. One other thing I just want to point out, there are additional global configuration options that you can modify for both the calendar and event registration. These are available from the configuration menu up here at the top. You can come in here and click on calendar of events or event registration to make global changes to the entire system. These are global options. So for example, if we wanted to change from that email authentication to using a login for event registration, this is where we would come and make that change right here. Alternatively, if you didn't want to differentiate between members and non-members at all, you could turn that off entirely as well. So I do recommend you browse through here and see if there's any that you feel would be relevant to your organization. A lot of them are super specific and probably don't apply, but if you have any questions, feel free to send us a ticket and we can let you know how various options work.
And those configurations are available to admin, super admin only, not to individually
Correct.
assigned. Okay.
Correct. Those are only available to full admins. All right, so that is everything. Do you guys have any questions about event registration or the calendar before I wrap up?
I see blank looks on everybody's face.
Clear as mud that we'll learn.
Feel
We
free
will learn.
Feel free to dive in there and play around. I will be leaving this event registration training event active. I'll just make it disabled so your members can't see it. So I'll leave it in here so you as admins can kind of come in here and poke around and look at the settings. Just as a refresher if you need to. So that will be left in there. And this has been recorded as well. So once the video converts after our call, I'll be uploading it to your file archive. And this can be accessed by full admins from the features menu, file archive, and I'll be uploading it to the website training videos category here alongside your general training. So that will be available for any admins to access.
We're not live yet, so leaving it up there.
What was that?
I was going to say, we're not live yet, so leaving it up there is not a problem for our members to see because we have not gone live yet.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Well, I'll still hide it for you, so we don't want it to be up there until then. Okay,
Somebody else had a question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is Valerie chiming in. I just to go back when we were setting up the event part, when we were selecting the member, the type, we could choose whether it's a prospect. And I remember seeing in the drop-down box also past members and some other. Are we able to choose multiple types?
no, they can only be added to one particular member type because you don't want to have duplicates in your member database.
Valerie,
so
those member types have been set up. Chris set those member types up, and we can add to the member types and add an additional.
Yep, you can.
so if we only want to be tracking prospects, we won't be able to track past members then at that point.
They're going to be one or the other. Those are member types that we have set up.
Yes, these are member types in your database. So people can only be in one member type at a time. So you can choose to even...
Yeah, Valerie, what they're looking for here is if you're adding somebody who's not a member, what do you want to call them?
Yeah, how do you want to store their information? What should they be stored as in your database? You could, in theory, we have some orgs that actually create an entirely separate member type for just event registration attendees, people who are not members who have attended event registrations, and they use that one for this option. So it's entirely up to your organization how you want to organize that.
Okay, I think Chris clarified what the reasoning is behind it. So thank you.
Okay, any other questions for me today?
Thank you. Great
All
job.
right. Yeah, no problem. Like I said, if you guys have any questions, feel free to use the help desk link at the top here to get a hold of us and send us a ticket. Otherwise, thank you for your time today and have a wonderful day.